So you're mad at your closest friend. Things are going wrong fast. How do you repair the damage? Do you send them a message that you want things to go back to the way they were? How do you stop a war that's not a war with a country that's sort of your support system? Find out now. Thanks for joining Learning with Sprayberry, where we make social studies fun, easy, and educational. Alright, so here's a little background. France had its own revolution after we had ours. The problem is that France wanted the US to support its revolution, like they did us. Under Washington, the US stayed out of the French Revolution. Washington believed that the US was too young and too weak to get involved in permanent foreign entanglements. And helping France during a revolution is definitely an entanglement. Eventually, this revolution expanded beyond the borders of just France into Europe proper. To make matters worse, the US, as a new country, was required to trade with other countries for survival. We were trying to trade with both France and England. One who supported us, but we refused to support back, and the other that we'd just broken ties with. Both England and France, who were at war with each other, began capturing neutral ships that traded with their enemies. This means that our ships are getting stopped by both England and France. We are stuck between a rock and a hard place. To quell some of the anger between the US and England, Washington negotiated Jay's Treaty. And this seemed to make the connection between England and the US a little bit stronger, which naturally angered France. And in response, France began stopping even more ships. Now, after Washington stepped down as president, John Adams comes up, and he's the one dealing with the beginnings of a war between the French and the United States. In 1797, Adams decided to send a special convoy to France. John Marshall and Elbridge Gerry were chosen to go to France and discuss the problems. Adams continued to push peace with France. Marshall and Gerry arrived in France and requested a meeting with Charles Maurice de Talleyrand, the French foreign minister. They met briefly and scheduled a longer, more productive meeting. While waiting for the meeting, Gerry and Marshall met with 3 French representatives, who we're going to call X, Y, and Z. In order to keep their meetings going, France demanded a $50,000 tribute to Talleyrand and a loan to the French government. Now, this isn't unusual. Bribes are part of the political landscape in Europe. Americans thought they were above such negotiations and refused. France repeated their request for financial support. They even tried to push the matter by threatening war, especially since, for the moment, France was at peace with Europe. Pinckney, another member of the US party, replied, "No, no, not a sixpence." After this declaration, Talleyrand finally came out and badmouthed America for not paying its demands. After this, the US and French delegates met a couple of times, but it's clear nothing's gonna happen. In the US, Adams began making backup plans in case the envoy failed, which it did. Congress pushed for a growth in the Navy and an increase of 20,000 men in the Army. When the envoys explained how their mission had failed, Adams chose to keep the bribe secret from Congress in the hopes that it would limit a push for war. Adams' cabinet, his advice group, is split. The Attorney General and the Secretary of State wanted to declare war against France. As per usual, political parties began making the issues partisan. Democratic Republicans spun the matter to make it seem like the Federalist, Adams, was only after war with France. They said he was playing up the French actions to push war. After receiving this pressure, Adams released the full description of the bribery scandal. He pulled out all the names of the French diplomats and replaced them with X, Y, and Z. Unfortunately, this information pushed the political parties even further. Federalists, who were already closer with England, pushed for a war with France. Many Federalists united under the slogan, "Millions for defense, but not 1 cent for tribute." Democratic Republicans had trouble creating a counter-argument because the XYZ Affair showed exactly how bad the US envoy was treated. Some historians argue that the Democratic Republicans secretly agreed with the Federalists and wanted war, but resisted simply to avoid publicly siding with the Federalists. because, you know, you can't look like you agree with the other side. Alright, so we know what happened here, but what about in France? What happens when it hits the fan? In France, Talleyrand was called to explain for the incident. He lied to the French government and said that the XYZ people were not part of his group, when in reality, he hired them to unofficially negotiate the deals. In the end, this event puts further strain on US-French relations. Federalists pushed for war, Democratic Republicans wanted peace. This event pushed Congress to narrowly pass the Alien and Sedition Acts. You can learn more about that in my video on the Alien and Sedition Acts. Eventually, matters between France and the US settled down a little. Now it's time for the question of the day. Should the US have paid up? I mean, they did help us during the revolution. It's also really shady to ask us to pay money to meet with officials. What do you think? Let me know down in the comments. If you found this helpful or like what you saw, click like. If you want to see more content, click subscribe. I drop new videos every Monday-ish. Thanks for watching and learning with Sprayberry, where we make social studies fun, easy, and educational. Thanks.